So, those moments of despair or anxiety, like right after a nightmare, or when fear of what's going to happen in terms of where, when, what, money, people, relationships, jobs just hits you like a ton of bricks and you just enter into panic or anxiety. That's been happening to me a lot since the war started here in Israel. And in those moments, I really love to call upon a being that represents for me compassion, love, wisdom, the knowing that everything is going to be okay, like Mother Mary or Mary Magdalene, who are really just like an aspect of myself, the compassionate, wise part of myself. I love calling on them in that moment so that I feel the presence of infinite, unconditional love. And it really, really helps me and supports me. And since the war, I've been on a really deep journey into the underworld, into letting go, into releasing a lot of definitions of who I am. I even, revamped and rebranded this podcast because it's a rebirth. And especially Inanna, one of the most ancient goddesses written about from ancient Sumeria, has been a powerful guiding light for me because she did a courageous journey into the underworld where she let go of so many aspects of herself in order to gain wisdom and insight and understanding about who she really is beyond all of the temporary physical reality. And so she's been a big teacher for me and an inspiration. And so I'm going to share with you a really powerful and magical story of journeying into the underworld and meeting Inanna and receiving guidance and direction from her and changing my habits and directing my life into more of a creation of magic. And this is what happens when we go into the underworld. We're stripped of the things that we no longer need so that we can see what's truly important and then let that shine. So, on this Halloween, happy Samhain, this debut episode of Opening the Door to Magic, the, the time of the Queen of Death, of the Witch's New Year, of a time of a rebirth, of letting go of the old and welcoming in the new. It's really closely correlated to the Jewish New Year as well, Rosh Hashanah. It's the time for rebirth. So, welcome to Opening the Door to Magic. This is a place where we explore what it means to live a magical life, what it means to push the boundaries, how magic and mastery come together, how magic isn't just a quick fix, but it's rather a deep devotion and a focus to being the master of your life, of moving through the difficult emotions to achieve mastery in whatever it is that you want to achieve mastery in. And once you do, it's like, woo, 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 your fingers are magic. Every button you press opens doorways into possibility, wonder, adventure, and abundance. So here goes the story of my journey into the underworld. I hope that you're in for a ride and some powerful lessons about life and magic and visualization and shamanic journeying or witchcraft journeying, whatever you want to call it. So, after the war happened, October 7th, we had a flight to go to the US to go to Kristen's wedding, one of my best friends. And we decided to stay in the US for 4 months instead of 10 days like it was originally planned. And what was so cool is that everything worked out for us. Like it was like the universe wanted us to stay and to explore and to feel what it was like to spend 4 months in the US. And this was my husband's first big trip to the US. And we road tripped through 21 states, spent some time in Colorado, spent some time with my mama in Atlanta, got to see friends all over the country, from North Carolina to Illinois to Pennsylvania, New York. It was awesome. And it really opened our eyes to the possibilities. And we're actually going to be relocating to America in December. So it definitely was a stepping stone to that. So after those 4 months of exploration and adventure and fun, we returned back to Israel. And this is when kind of reality hit us pretty hard. The first 2 weeks was magical because I felt the land really celebrating my return. The land is a big reason why I'm here. I'm not Jewish. I didn't have any connection to Israel before I met my first Israeli friend in Australia, who eventually brought me to Israel, and I stayed for 10 years. And I really feel that the land has and still teaches me a lot of codes of wisdom of our ancestry, of where we come from. A lot of the deep prayer for world peace exists here because people live in such conflict with our neighbors that we hold the deep prayer for world peace here, right? It's like that contrast because if you're kind of living in a place where everybody gets along and everything's fine, like in America, you're not deeply desiring world peace. It doesn't really affect you, the fact that there's war going on in other places in the world. But where war is affecting, you're traumatized, but you're also deeply holding the prayer for peace and really can see in our vision what that actually would take, what that actually would look like. So when I came back, I was celebrating with the land, visiting my spring that I tend to, that I talk about in my water priestessing episode. I was building altars for peace on the beach and in next to different waterways like the Jordan River. And yeah, it felt really good until it didn't anymore, until feeling the frequency of war just started affecting my soul. And this is when I really realized that I'm on a journey into the underworld now, as are all of us in Israel and in every place that is affected by war right now. It's like this is our soul initiations into letting go of who we think we are, letting go of what we think we're supposed to be doing, and connecting to really what it is that we're supposed to be doing. So, or what it is that we truly want to do. So I had sent out an email. I went on this beautiful goddess um, tour of an ancient site in Megiddo. It's like a temple that was built in a very strategic place amongst other mountains where all the landscape was actually a part of the temple. And it really opened my eyes. And they talked about Inanna and how in ancient Israel and the Middle East, it was Sumeria and they worshiped the goddess. And before Yahweh, before there was a single God um, introduced to the culture and the people and the traditions, there was actually a deep worship of the feminine and the goddess that's alive and animating all things, including us human. And so we really saw ourselves as interconnected, interrelated with all of nature, with each other. There were no doors, there were no locks, there were no gates. Everybody lived in harmony and in peace and in freedom of exchange with each other and in cooperation. And it was at the same time that the single masculine God was introduced and pushed upon the people, that we built doors and locks and war started and famine and stealing each other's stuff, and inner city competition. So that was really eye-opening and just made me connect even more deeply with Inanna. And I was really feeling her, and she kept coming up in books that I was reading, in posts that I would read. And I made an email to my email list. I sent out a newsletter about Inanna just to inspire my people and share with them this information that I was learning about this warrior goddess of sexuality who was known for her journey into the underworld and the 7 gates that she had to pass through, where each gate she gave up a part of herself in order to reconnect with who she truly is and in order to discover herself as like the innocent, pure baby. She emerged as this blank slate of love. And one of my dear friends, Anwin Avalon, who's also an incredible author and teacher of a course that I'm currently in called Water Magic, I highly recommend it. She saw my email and wrote to me and said, Ashley, are you okay? If Inanna is showing up in your email, something is probably up with you. Are you okay? And I wrote back and I was like, you know how I'm doing. I sent you my latest tarot reading for myself, and you could see I had the tower, and just like all of the difficult cards came up for all of them. Like, I'm definitely on a journey. And she's like, Ashley, you are on a journey in the underworld, and you have 7 gates to pass through. Which gate are you on? And so she made me think about the individual challenges that I had to pass through in the last month or two from the time that I returned from the US. And so I told her, I think I'm around gate 3. And she's like, okay, so you have 4 or 5 more gates to go. So she said, you can go in kicking and screaming or with your head held high. Which one do you want to do? And of course, being me, I'm like, I want to go with my head held high. I don't want to kick and scream. I want to learn and approach this from a place of integrity and eyes wide open, and I'm ready for whatever challenge is being faced at me. And so she said, okay, I want to guide you. I want to instruct you to take a journey into the underworld so that instead of having things happen to you, you actually go directly to them and say, hey, what do you want from me, spirit? What are my tasks? What is being asked of me right now? And this way we kind of shortcut our life lessons. And it's not even a shortcut. It's like, when you get to choose your challenges, when you decide to step into the fire, life doesn't have to throw you so many curveballs. This is what I really learned. It's like when I make a big investment in myself, and I sit there for that time and I'm investing and I'm figuring out the payments and I'm doing all the things and trying to earn the money that it takes to pay it off, I get less financial challenges in my life because I've chosen to do the growth consciously as opposed to just letting the growth happen to me. So, wherever we want to grow in our life, just know that the universe is going to make you grow in that way anyway, eventually, sometime. So you might as well step in with both feet and say, okay, like I want to overcome this challenge, so I'm going to put myself in that place where I am challenged directly by that thing. Like investing or like relationships or like building a skill. So she gave me these instructions. I'm not going to tell you what the instructions were because you'll find out as I tell the story. And I knew after this voice note that I received from her, I took notes, I wrote everything down that she said. And I said, you know what? I'm being directed to do this today. I'm putting everything else aside. I'm done with my sessions for today. I'm done with any important work that I needed to do. And I was going to do something else, but actually, I'm going to put everything else aside and focus on this ceremony that she instructed me to do. So I was alone in the house. I lit some incense, saged and cleansed energetically the whole house, and set up my room, vacuumed, cleaned, organized, tidied everything up so that I had a really pristine space to go into ceremony. And I created a protective circle around me with bowls of water that I blessed and prayed to, candles, salt, crystals. I pulled out all the guns. Like, if you do a protective circle, you don't need to use all of those things, but I used everything I had. I like just everything. And she told me to time myself. If there was nobody home to like pull me out, she said, you need to put a timer because that way you're actually going to come out of the underworld. So the first instruction was to really set up the space, make myself a place where I could lay down comfortably, and then get myself into a trance state. My favorite way of getting into a trance state is doing breath work and especially Breathe with Sandy. He's my homeboy. I highly recommend his YouTube, and I'm one of his patrons on Patreon. And it's just so worth it. He has 15-minute breath work, he has 5-minute breath work, and then on his Patreon, he has hour-long sessions that really bring you deep into the subconscious and help to, yeah, go into your own underworld, right? Because what is the underworld? The underworld is really the subconscious. It's the unconscious. It's things that you aren't aware of or like you haven't been able to see with your conscious mind and make decisions about. So going into the underworld is really going into the deep recesses of your past lives, your ancestry, your inner child, and the memories that exist within you and the imprints that exist within you so that you can then learn more about yourself and gain more mastery about yourself. So I put on like a 20-minute breathe with Sandy, and she told me, get into the trance state. And when you think you're there, go deeper. And then when you think you're deeper, go even deeper. And then when you think you're even deeper, keep going until you basically don't realize that you're in a trance state. That's how it works. So I had listened to this breath work. I was in the sacred circle. All the candles are lit. The music is going. I had beautiful music in the background. And I'm doing this breath work. And when he was finished, the music kept going. And I just continued with the breath work until I was able to easily and effortlessly transport myself to my spring cave. There's an ancient temple ground here in Israel, about 15 minutes from my house, with a cave that has a spring inside of it. So as you go into the cave, you're already in water. And the wall of the cave, the back of it where the water comes out, looks like a pelvic floor. It's a perfect yoni. So you literally feel like you're in the mother's womb. And Anwin had pointed out to me that this is an entry point into the underworld, into the womb of the mother, into the underground of Mother Earth, the womb of Mother Earth. So see, she instructed me in my mind's eye to travel to that place. So this way it's like a double entry because a spring is also an entry and a cave is also an entry into the underworld. So we got a double whammy, like this is going to be easy. So at that point, I was easily able to picture myself and feel myself traveling to that place. I could see all the trees and the landscape around me. I could see clearly the cave. I got naked and got into the cave. And this is all in my vision. This is all in my self-guided shamanic journey. I got into the cave and there was the white lady or the lady of the lake waiting for me in the cave. And she instructed me to plunge into the water to continue cleansing myself to get ready for my journey into the underworld. And she actually was like pushing me down. And as I was still breathing, like in the rhythm of the breath work, it was like she was pushing me down in the rhythm that I was breathing. And I could feel when I was underwater that I was holding my breath. And it was really cool. And at some point, she even pushed me all the way down to the bottom and then stepped on me to hold me down there to really prepare me for my entrance. So when she deemed that I was ready, then my two dragon allies appeared. So I have two dragons, a red one and a blue one, or they're also like gold and silver. And they started wrapping around me in a DNA double helix spiral. And as they were doing this, I could feel that they were also cleansing my auric field and my energy field. And they were helping to crystalline structure the waters of my body so that my waters were going into the fourth phase, the very highly crystalline structured phase, rather than more disconnected as they kind of usually are when we're not in coherence. So they were creating massive coherence in my physical and energetic and emotional and mental bodies. And so as they completed that and I felt like really aligned with myself, as they were doing this as well, I felt my mermaid suit come on. So I became a mermaid. They told me I was ready. Everybody told me I was ready. And so I plunged into the entrance where the water comes out. And they took me down, 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 down into the darkness. And once I was in this absolute darkness, which Anwin had told me about, they left me. They said, okay, we'll wait for you here for when you're ready to come back. So you're on your own now. And I said, okay. So I'm in the darkness void for a few moments until I see a tiny pinprick of light. And it's this pinprick of light that draws me into the underworld. And everything turns upside down, where down becomes up and up becomes down. And I emerge into the underworld, which for me at that moment was Ariel's treasure trove from The Little Mermaid. And I was like, yay, this is my place. I love it. The Little Mermaid was my absolute favorite movie growing up. So it just felt like home. And I was exploring and looking around all the shelves. And then all of a sudden, who shows up? Ursula. And I'm like, oh no, I'm not talking to Ursula. I don't want nothing to do with you. I'm not talking to you. That was my immediate reaction. And so she left. But then her two eels showed up. You know, those like creepy snakes from the movie? So they showed up, but they looked so similar to my dragons. They were the same colors as my dragons that I felt good with them. And I asked them, okay, what does Ursula want from me? And this is one of the instructions of Anne when she said, when you see beings, ask them, introduce yourself and ask them what they want from you. So I introduced myself and then asked them, what does Ursula want from me? And then they laughed and they were like, what do you think? Of course, she wants your voice. And I said, oh my God, I no, I'm not falling for that. Like Ariel fell for that. I'm not falling for that. And they said, no, she wants you to do 4 days of silence to learn more about yourself, to learn about the power of your voice, and uncover another level of your mastery. And I was like, dude, 4 days? That's a lot. Like, I don't know if I could do 4 full days of silence, like living in my normal life. Maybe at some Vipassana retreat, maybe I should look into that. But I was like, it feels like too much. And then they said, well, we have a deal for you. If you do it on the 4/4, April 4th, then it counts as 4 days, but you have to do it for that full 24 hours on April 4th. And any offering that you give on April 4th, 4/4, gets multiplied by 4. So if you do a full day of silence, then it counts for 4 full days. So I said, you know what? Okay, I can do that. I'll take it. And yeah, and then they just kind of like spiraled around me and they were like, okay, it's done, it's done, it's done. And I said, it's done. I'm doing it. So they left and I was continuing to explore the underworld. It was just the ocean. It was like Ariel's kingdom, with Triton and all the beautiful things and Flounder and Sebastian and the corals, and it was just gorgeous. And I was just enjoying being in the ocean. I've always had a really powerful affinity with the ocean and felt home there. So yeah, it makes sense that one of the most powerful representations for me of the underworld is the ocean. It doesn't mean that it's going to be that for you, right? For each of us, it's different. And so, and maybe at different times that we explore the underworld, it can look differently. Right. One of my really good friends, Hila Dekel, who I also interview on the podcast, she does shamanic journeys where she takes people into a tree and then takes them underneath the tree. And whenever I do those kind of shamanic journeys to go into the underworld, my underworld looks more like a basement of a house, but like a very cavernous basement that has like lots of rooms and it's like a maze. So it can look different for all of us and look different at different times. So I was swimming around in my underworld, in my underwear, in my mermaid suit, and I came across another mermaid, and she was so beautiful. She had a white tail and black hair and a white bra, and she looked so beautiful. And I knew right away that this was Inanna. And it made me so happy to see her. And then she was happy to see me. So we were dancing with each other and spiraling around with our mermaid tails with each other. And it was so much fun. And then all of a sudden, boom, she got super serious and opened her eyes wide and looked me straight in the eye. And she was like, enough. And I was like, okay. Hi, Nana. I'm Ashley. What do you want from me? What message do you have for me? And then all of a sudden, she took out this long piece of fabric, this white fabric, and started wrapping it around my pelvis like an underwear, like around my hips and under my pelvis and around and around and around and around. And it was kind of violent, it reminded me of the similar kind of aggression of the Lady of the Lake at the top in the cave. So she's wrapping this around me, and I'm like, what is this? And she's like, this is your chastity belt. And I was like, my chastity belt? She's like, yeah, no more masturbation. And I was like, oh my God, what are you talking about? And she said, your task to gain more mastery over yourself and create more magic in your life, in your relationship, is no masturbation, no touching yourself for 44 days. The number 4 was like really strong in this specific journey. 44 days. And I was like, oh my God, 44 days. Can I have sex? Can I make love like with my partner? She said, yeah, you, of course you can. Just no touching yourself anytime. So I said, okay, I can do that. I can do that. 44 days, no problem. And so she kept this belt around me. She didn't take it off. It's like, no, this belt stays on you for 44 days. So I told her, thank you. We kind of spiraled around each other to say goodbye. And then my alarm went off when it was time to go. And one of the instructions I had from Anwen was make sure you come out the way you came in, because then you're not gonna get stuck in there. You really get out. So I passed through the treasure trove of wonders, up through the little hole of blackness, back into the void where I met my dragons, and they brought me back up to the cave where I met the lady of the lake, and she did a couple more plunges for good measure. And then she kind of like threw me out of the cave, like launched me out of the cave. And as she launched me out, I all of a sudden grew big angel wings. And I saw myself an earth angel, like here to do holy work on the planet. And that was like a very powerful symbolic moment for me of like, I am in the earth, but not of it. I am on the earth, but not bound to it. And I was an angel. And then all of a sudden, I'm there at the land where the spring and the temple is, and I see all these other angels, and they identify themselves to me as the Nova angels, the Nova massacre, the festival in southern Israel where 300 to 400 people were killed on October 7th. And they said, we're here to continue to help this land and help bring peace to the earth, peace to the Middle East, to bring unconditional love to all beings. And we know that you had an amazing time in the US. We know that you're in a little bit of a rush to get out of here because you feel the difficulty of being here. But do us a favor and just stay a little bit longer. Don't rush your way out. Stay a little bit longer. And now that I'm saying it, it's wild because I feel that I was meant to be pregnant here. I'm giving birth in the US, I think. But I was meant to have this fetus be here on this land at this time. And I think that was a big reason why I wasn't meant to rush out of here. I'm just kind of figuring that out right now. But so I get this powerful message from them that, they're here with us. And it's wild because I went to a few parties, because my husband is a producer. And so we have a lot of our community is in the festival community and the parties scene. And I went to these parties and I really felt that the Nova Angels were there with us. In every gathering, they're there helping to bring peace to our hearts, to bring love and unconditional love to our relations. So this was their message, like keep good relations. So that was really beautiful. And then I was able to release back to earth and then come back to my room in my protective circle and slowly bring myself back into my body. And it was wonderful because I immediately recorded a message to Anwen just describing the whole experience and then journaled about it to really ground it in and make it real. You know, there's a big part of our minds that want to doubt that this means anything or doubt that this is actually real. And I find that as I share with people and as I write things down, even recording this podcast right now, it's helping to make these things more real. But it's important that they are spoken into the right ears, especially in the beginning. So I knew I could share with Anwin because I knew that she would, not doubt a single thing that I was saying. And exactly the opposite, she would completely support and have some insights about what I was saying. So that's something to really be careful about. And I've learned on my path that if I share magical things with skeptical people right away, it can burst the magic. So I'm really careful now about who I tell. And I'm going to be sharing these stories of these magical moments in my life here on the podcast as a practice to broadcast these messages that are often only kept to those ears, like those private ears. You know what I mean? So, just to complete the story, I did manage to do the 44 days of no self pleasure and the full day of silence. And they were both so profound and helped me realize so many things. The no self pleasure really enhanced my sensitivity and enhanced my communication with my lover, really helping him to understand my body more and not like overriding him with any impatience or, it's easier for me to just do it myself. So I didn't have to, you know, I didn't have to explain to him exactly what to do. But because I had worn this chastity belt and I had made this commitment to Inanna, I stayed committed for those 44 days. And it was hard. It was not easy, but it was worth it because our communication definitely improved. So that was a big gift that I received. And then in terms of the 4 days of silence, which was really one day of silence, I was also instructed to spend that entire day at the spring. And I had a profound initiation there because on that specific day that I decided to go to this, like on that 4-4 that I went to the spring, there were 3 to 4 busloads of children dropped off at this tiny ancient temple that day. And I had to deal with screaming and the litter and the irreverence of the parents and the children and this insanity that was happening in one of my holy temple spaces. And it was very difficult for me to endure and witness. But I found this deep power within myself of being the protector and the guardian of the spring. And I was calling on all the guardians of the land and all the spirits of the water to be present with me, like awakening them alive. Angels, nymphs, fairies, dragons, I'm here. We're here. Come. You're welcome. Like we need you right now. And I felt this kind of team that was helping to hold the sacredness of the space while these children came. And at the same time, seeing children is amazing because they have this innocence and this carefree energy and loving presence. But at the same time, because children are taught from a young age to, behave a certain way, that there was a sadness in me of the irreverence that was present. So I felt my role, that I was supposed to be there to help anchor in the ancient ways. And I was picturing women coming there. The water always told me, ever since I first found this place, the water always told me, bring the women to the water. And I had these visions of women carrying copaleras with smoke, sacred incense, walking up the old temples and circling around the land and resurrecting the ancient spirits, resurrecting the temples. And so that also helped me put together my latest Water Priestess Day Retreat pilgrimage that I did that April. Um, Even through the war, even through, Haifa, which is the area that I live in, becoming under attack and those kind of things, that we still manage to do this sacred work there, which is so, so, so important at this time. So that's my story. And one of the really powerful things that Anwen told me after I explained to her the journey was that anything I was instructed to do from the underworld, I absolutely had to do it. She's like, you can't back down. You can't not do it. You have to do it. And her saying that and then it matching the deep knowing that I felt that if I was going to go into my underworld journey with my head held high, if I was going to really commit to a life of mastery, to a life of magic, you know, I'm not in for a life of suffering and struggle and strife and like that's my story. No, my story is a life of magic, is a life of possibility and wonder and awe and abundance. That's the story that I'm subscribing to. And if that's my story, I have to go into everything that I commit to with my head held high and my heart open. And for me, this was an integration of what it means to commit to something, what it means to be devoted. And because I was dealing with the underworld, with my subconscious, with God, with the goddess, with these ancient beings, that I knew there was no room to fuck around. You know, I knew that I'm taking my life and I'm taking my magical life seriously. I demand a life of magic, you know, in a soft way. It's like a soft demand, you know. It's not like I'm gonna be kicking and screaming if something doesn't work out my way. You know, that's not a life of magic. A life of magic is going with what's happening and realizing that it's all for you, that you're attracting who you are in your life. You're attracting what you need to grow in your life. So everything is for you, not against you. And when we stand to these commitments, to this devotion to a higher power, and we move through the feelings of fear, of boredom, of doubt, of craving or addiction, and we actually are able to move through it and not succumb to it, we stay on the path to mastery. We keep the process going so that our intuition becomes stronger. Our ability to cope with whatever is faced with us is stronger. Our value to society and to other humans is greater. And we feel better and more at home within ourselves. So much gratitude and appreciation for Anwen, for one of my high priestesses, for supporting me in this journey to the underworld. Big gratitude to Ursula and what she means to me and being a part of my subconscious, you know. And one of my friends also pointed out that like Ursula is not a bad thing, right? It's like, who is she really? And so this is also a journey in my own heart of like, who is Ursula and how can I love her? How can I respect her? How can I bring her powers into myself and not adopt the parts, the shadow parts, right? But to love the shadows because they exist within myself too. Thank you to Inanna, to your holy light and wisdom, your warrioress energy, your beautiful example of sacred union, of deep love for the self, of bravery and courage to go into the unknown and to share about it with others, to move through shame and guilt, to show up in your power. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being a guiding light in my life. And thank you to the listener here. I hope this was inspiring for you. I hope this opened up something for you. If it did, please write me. Let me know what your favorite moment was or what stood out to you the most. If you enjoyed this episode and you know a friend that would benefit from hearing it, text it to them right now. Send them the link, share it in your stories, and give us a shout out. Drop us a review on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. It means the world to us and really helps me to continue growing and investing my energy into this amazing platform. Thanks for being a part of this community. and for being a explorer of the magical life and opening the doors to magic every single day. Much love and many blessings. Bye.